All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Yeah. Thank you all for joining today. My name is Raina, and we're going to go over basics of blending. So why are we teaching a class? I just want to simplify blending. There are lots of information and opinions out there. Everyone does it a little bit differently, and there are lots of ways to do it that are all okay. But I just want to make sure that you have an easier time kind of sorting out that information. You have a chance to ask some questions and watch a demonstration of how we do it. Maybe you'll see something that you want to take and do with your own practice. I really believe real food is essential to every person, regardless of how you eat, whether it's through a tube or a spoon or a straw or traditionally chewing. It's important to get all those real food nutrients. You just can't replicate that with formula. These are the exact same reasons that we decided to build this app. We want to make this a simpler process and make sure that you can track data when you need to track it, but also to simplify the whole thing. Before we start, I just want to make sure what you choose to feed yourself and your child is your own decision. This class is a safe, judgment-free zone. Feel free to talk about formula, food, anything and all in between. I want to meet you on your journey and just answer questions as best as I can or help you find resources. Any questions, please ask. If you don't feel confident to speak out, that's okay. My husband's manning the chat and he'll read out your question for you. Don't feel like you have to take a lot of notes. I am recording this. You may have seen a pop-up. At the end of the class, you're going to get this video. You're going to get the PowerPoint that I'm going through. You're going to get a code for the app for free for a month. And then you're going to get the video of this class. So, and then if any questions come up, I'm always able to be contacted. So in the beginning, when you're first starting out, there's a whole grocery store full of food. Where the heck do you start? Not to oversimplify it, but if it is safe to eat it, it's safe to blend it. You need to think more about the individual health needs, not so much as making a formula. Blend to your individual health needs and then also what your family eats. The tube is only the access point. Simply not chewing and swallowing does not change what that individual needs or your cultural food preferences. We live out in the country and there's a cow absolutely freaking out. I don't know if you can hear it. She is bellowing and bellowing all morning. Aw. It's very distracting to have a cow screaming outside your window. Okay, so components to a great tube feeding. First of all, it meets your nutrition goals. If you need, sometimes you get, I did this in the beginning, you get just lost in the fog. It's like you're working on creating this tube feeding and there is so much information and so much data and there's calories per ounce and this and that. And actually maybe I'm feeding less calories than I was on formula. So of course, if you need to gain weight or maintain your weight or lose weight, it has to meet your goals. So you need to have a balanced mix of protein, fats, and carbs, have a variety of micronutrients. And notice I didn't say it has to be absolutely perfect because it doesn't. And we're going to talk about that again and again, but it needs to just have a variety and you're going to feed a little bit different each day and you're going to meet your goals. I do recommend using the blended recipe builder to create, check nutrition, and communicate with your medical team. We've made this on purpose because we needed it. It does help, and I'll show you how it helped us. Components to a great tube feeding. It's got to be well tolerated. It doesn't mean much if half of it isn't staying down, or if they're having diarrhea so fast, or if they're so miserable from constipation and reflux. If it's not well tolerated, it needs to change. It needs to be the right thickness. It needs to work for how you want to feed. If you're trying to pump feed and it's super thick and the thing is beeping all the time, or if you're trying to gravity feed and it just won't go, then you need to either change the way you're feeding or change your thickness of your tube feeding. Both of those can be done. And it needs to be affordable. This is a huge one. It could be the best ingredients in the world, but if they're all just, super organic and only come from this one store that I have to drive 2 hours to get to, it's not going to be doable. There's no need to overcomplicate this. Ingredients can be purchased where you normally shop to feed the rest of your family or things that you already have in your home. Keep it simple. So before jumping in, or if you've already started and things are going rougher, I would make a plan. Really think about these reasons, and we're going to make sure that your blend fits those. So why are you planning to blend? Do you have a specific problem that you're trying to tackle? Is it weight gain, needing to gain weight? Are there certain health concerns that you're wanting to support, such as like cancer fighting foods or any specific goal that you want to tackle, let's make sure the blend hits those points. Convenience. How are you planning to feed? Do you want to stick with your pump feeding or do you have access to a Teal Infinity pump? As far as I know, it's the only one. There is that Moog pump that's coming out, or what is it, the Omni? I haven't gotten to try it yet. And some people, I've heard like mixed reviews on Blenderizer, and it sounds like it does work for some people and not others. This is the only one that I absolutely know does work for thicker foods. And then thinking about your transitioning plan, if you're on formula and you're just transitioning to food, how long have they been on formula? If it's been for an extended time, you may want to go a little bit slower and introduce those fibers a little bit slower. If they're having formula intolerance and like nothing's staying down and they're having a miserable time, you may want to go faster. Thinking about allergies, have they had food in the past? If they were an adult eater or a toddler eater, just ate all kinds of foods, no allergy issues, then there's no reason to think they're going to suddenly have allergies with tube feeding. If they have never had food before, such as an infant, maybe that, or somebody that's been on tube feeding for a long time and you just don't even know if they've had food for a long time, then I would do one food at a time every couple of days as you introduce and consider those allergies. If they've had a whole food formula, such as whole story meals or um, functional formularies, I'm blanking out, and what was the other one? Whole food blends. I'm like, we used it for years. And so we know they've had chicken and rice and some of the ingredients in those, then you know those are safe foods and you could just start your blends based off those. So if you're just choosing first foods, I always recommend just work on fixing problems. So if they are having a ton of reflux, do some good thicker blends with low reflux foods. If they're having constipation or diarrhea, you can give, foods to make things thinner and foods to make things thicker and just start to balance that out. That's going to get you on a better quality of life right away. If you're managing a more complicated health condition with like nutrient imbalances or migraines or balancing blood sugars, things like that, a good dietitian can really help with that. And they don't even have to be familiar with tube feeding. They're just recommending foods and you're putting them into your blends. Typically in the beginning, lower fiber foods are tolerated if you're transitioning off of formula because the formula is all soluble fiber and lower fiber. So you're going to need to add a little bit of fiber, add water, and just see how it's tolerated and let your body get used to that. That's where that volume intolerance can come in. And going lower fiber kind of allows the stomach to stretch out and the body to kind of gradually accept those foods. I prioritize gut health. You need a prebiotic and a probiotic, and this is good advice for all of us, but especially when you're transitioning to whole foods. Usually the best advice is to go slow. Sometimes when you just jump right into blends, it goes kind of bad and then you got to back up. But if you kind of go slow, a food at a time, kind of gradually build that up, it does usually go better. But honestly, we jumped right in. We had to because she just could not hold down formula for nothing. So you just have to kind of decide that for yourself. There is a ton of that available in the tips and tricks section on the app, as far as like information about transitioning and different food lists and different things like that. I'll show you a little bit later. Okay, you're going to need some equipment to blend. We do not make any money off of equipment. The only things I recommend are things that I've used before. If you have some of these, don't go buy all new. It should be fine. You're going to need a blender, the best one you can afford. But again, we use a cheap blender. Our blender is $79. I've blended everything in the app. It works phenomenal. I don't think you need to spend a ton of money. Rubber spatulas, I have my favorite ones. I have links for you that I'm sending you a page of, but if you have rubber spatulas, use the ones you like. A food scale, a metal strainer, some kind of storage container. And if you're planning to bolus feed or pump feed, you need either O-ring syringes or a Teal Infinity pump. We're going to briefly touch on food safety. I don't think this has to be overwhelming for tube feeders. There's a few things that we do a little differently, but it's the same, and you already know all of this. If blend how you would eat it. So if it's safe to blend it that way, if it's safe to eat it that way, it's safe to blend it that way. So potatoes, meat, and eggs, you need to cook them before you eat. So cook them before you blend. And then just like a freezer, casserole, pizza, lasagna, baby food, anything that you have blended that has meat in it, I do believe that you should heat it to piping hot when it comes out of the freezer, allow it to cool, and then feed. If it has never been frozen, then it should be safe to warm and feed. You can store your blends in the refrigerator for 24 to 48 hours and in the freezer for 2 months. You can, let's see. So just like orally eating, you need to wash your hands, cook your meats to proper temperatures, don't cross-contaminate. If you touch your phone or tablet, and then don't touch your food, and wash veggies and fruits well. The big thing that might be different for some of us is if you're planning to pump feed, you've really got to be careful of that temperature danger zone. So basically room temperature. You don't want whole food and preservative food to be in the temperature danger zone, room temperature for more than 2 hours. So this can be tough if you're trying to do a continuous tube feeding, but you can put it in a child's lunchbox, a nice one with 2 big ice packs, one on each side of your bag, and then keep an eye on your temperature. So this little guy, some people put the pump and everything in there, which is totally great. Keep it all nice and cold. Don't worry about the tubing. It's going to gradually warm as it goes. Whoops. It's going to gradually just warm as it goes, but from here to here is not going to be 2 hours, even on the slowest strip. So that part is fine. And all of this is going to stay nice and cold. Keep an eye on it, make sure it's below 40 degrees, and then you know you're safe. Last thing you want is food poisoning. So some tips that we figured out over time to make it easier. And this might feel like we're jumping the gun. We're going to go through some blends and then I always post these on Instagram and everywhere else too, but it'll make more sense as we go. But I like to just save food. And all of our recipes are customizable. So if you save, like say you make a big pot of rice, if I'm making rice for dinner for my family, I make a little extra and then I just save it. I like to save it in cup portions. You could save it in half cup portions, whatever it is. And then come blend day, you've got all this good rice ready to go and just throw it in. And you can just change your recipe to either use 2 of them or use 1 of them and customize those recipes as you go. It makes it really easy. Frozen and canned fruits and veggies save a ton of time and money. And then for us, we've kind of over time developed our base blend. So I don't reinvent the wheel every single time I blend. I do our basic that we know works for us. We keep raisins, hemp hearts, we keep olive oil. We always keep a variety of canned or frozen fruits, veggies, whole milk in our fridge. So at any time, say I'm making chicken, I can just grab some of the chicken from our dinner, throw it together with what else I have for a blend if I wanted. If you have the freezer space, batch blending is a lifesaver. Prep ahead, get a friend or a spouse, knock out 8 blends in a day, which is like takes us about 3 hours, counting cleanup. And now we're set for a month. And that just saves so much time. But again, when this is all a little bit more advanced because you want to make sure you know what recipe is going to work for you before you go making a whole month worth. Here's the links. There is a Blendtec medical discount program for the professional blender, which is super nice. Vitamix has refurbished models, which are amazing. We used the $79 NutriBullet that we got from Target. We are on our second one, but our first one lasted 4 years and we blended at least every week with it tons. Here's the rubber spatulas I like the best. They're just a little bit bendier than some of the other ones, but you don't have to go buy new. A scale, any scale is fine. I like the one with the on-off button because it doesn't drain through my batteries. A fine metal strainer, storage containers. We prefer mason jars. Any brand. Oops, I'm always doing that. Any brand works. Just get the straight-sided. Here's a link just so if you want to see them. O-ring syringes, you can do the Infit Link or the Legacy. And then if you can't afford it, try to get a chest freezer or a stand-up freezer. It's a big help. We just use like 1 shelf on our stand-up freezer and it helps a ton to have extra ingredients and when we do batch blends. Here's some additional resources. Here's the app and then our YouTube and then some other things that have been helpful to us. Okay, I'm gonna unshare here and then change my camera real quick. Does anybody have any questions so far? I'm gonna get to blending here. Just interrupt anytime. Okay. Oh, I didn't show, let me show the recipe that I'm using. Forgot one step. All right, share. All right. Okay, so here we're in the app, in the blend book. And I'm going in the first blend section. The first blend section is specifically made for people that are just transitioning off of formula onto food. Anyone can use them, but these are made with a probiotic and a prebiotic, and they have kind of simple foods. They're higher in calorie and they're low in fiber. So we cook the vegetables, which I don't always do, but just kind of lowering the fiber. Cooked vegetables have lower fiber than raw. Okay, and then so like I mentioned, anything is customizable. So the first thing I always like to do is on my blend day, I always I usually either add the date or change the name of it to the date. And then I'm going to um, save this version to my favorites once I make my customizations. So I actually have white rice today instead of brown. And anything I change is just going to automatically update my nutrition. So today I don't have brown rice and I don't have kefir. And I think I have everything else. I do have yogurt, so I'm going to add that in, and I have white rice. I have a cup of white rice. So now anything I'm adding or deleting, it is going to change the thickness just a little bit, but that's usually not a big deal. It usually takes actually quite a bit to throw it off. And if it's a little too thick, I just add a little bit more milk. And if it's too thin, I just add a little, or if it's vice versa. I can't talk today. I'm sorry, guys. Okay. So I didn't have kefir, so I am adding a little bit of yogurt, and I didn't have brown rice, so I'm adding white rice. And then I'm going to add a little bit of milk. We'll see how much I end up doing. Since I don't have the kefir, it's probably going to make it a little bit too thick. Um, Milk whole. I'll start with a cup and we'll see. So now I can just take a peek at my nutrition. I always like to just kind of make sure I'm on track before I blend. So our feeding size happens to be 6 ounces. See how it all changed. So now I know my feeding size is 219 calories. So this is where I could decide if I want to add more oil, or my fat percentage is only 20%. So if I was wanting more calories, I could add more oil there. That'd be super easy. And I have a few nutrients that I kind of keep track of. Is there a question?
Yes. Do you have to worry about water intake with the blends?
As far as like for the total day water intake, maybe? I do keep track of her water. Different health concerns, you're going to have different amounts, but there is water provided by the blend. Total day, yes, that's a good question. And that was a huge thing to sort out in the beginning. So I use the journal. And at this point of life, I don't look at like every day specifically, but I did in the beginning. And before I had this app, it was a ton of math. Now with the journal, you can easily keep track. So every blend that I'm doing shows my water from the blend. So for this particular, and that's taking the percentage of every single food that added in there, like how much water is in the honey, how much water is in the apple. Um, and it's tallying it for you. But you probably also have a water goal that maybe your doctor or dietitian has given you. If not, I've got charts here you can help figure out your rough goal. But that's where I would use the journal. So add my feeding to the journal, and then how much water I'm using to flush. It's always going to pull this pop up. So if I want to keep track of anything by mouth or by tube, that kind of thing, but any additional water by tube, I'm going to flush with an ounce after, let's just say. And you can change the date and time or leave them all the same. I usually don't worry about that, but it depends on how you want it to show up here. On the journal page, you have your daily water goal, which I have not set, and your daily calorie intake goal. I'm not going to go through that right now, but in your profile, you can just set your water goal and your calorie goal, and then it's going to count that down for you. So you can see, oh, today I still needed 200 mLs of water, or today I was 200 calories short. Well, if every day you're short, you may start having some health issues, right? Constipation if you're not getting enough water, or if every day you're a little short on your calories, then you're probably not going to notice the weight gain that you need. There's little charts here on how much water do I need and how many calories do I need if your care team isn't super helpful with that, or just for education and give you ideas of questions to ask. But now everything that I've just randomly added in here throughout the day goes into my journal. It adds it together and tallies it. So now on here is my full day combined. And that's where I'd like to see if overall every day I'm really low on calcium, or every day I'm not meeting my marks for my B vitamins. That's where you might want to add like your multivitamin or something like that. Calcium was one that we found was kind of hard to get. So that's why I always blend with milk instead of blending with bone broth and things like that, because you can just kind of make those decisions educated based on how you're meeting your targets. And this compares it to your daily allowance, which is also set in your profile. So it's, if it's a child or an adult, those are going to be drastically different numbers. I hope that answered the question good. So you can watch your goal and it does tally it all from your blends, combination of blend and flushes. So I think, thank you. Okay, so I think I'm gonna follow this recipe and just add my cup of water and see if it's thick enough. And then if we have any more questions that I need that for, I'll just jump back on. Did I end share? Okay, I did. All right, let's blend. Change camera, thank you. Ah, not that. I'm very click happy today. Okay, there we go. All right, so here's our little basic blend. Using my little NutriBullet. So it's a cheaper blender, but it's got the blades at the bottom. We also have one of the, what's it called, Ninja?
The Ninja.
With the blades that come out and they're like the big cylindrical. It does not work as good. So I don't know, I think it's the blades at the bottom that make the difference personally. I just dump everything in unceremoniously. I have my cooked chicken, 4 ounces, my cup of white rice. This is cooked zucchini. We just microwaved it. Oh, okay. And then what's next? 1 whole apple, and it's peeled to lower the fiber. Normally I just leave the peel on, so it's got some good nutrients in it, but in the beginning, you've got to watch that fiber. Here's my yogurt. What's next? 1.5 tablespoons of oil. I just always kind of eyeball my oil because I'm not a very patient person. 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Salt is so important. And if you're not gaining weight, you might really be looking at the salt. Okay, cocoa powder. I think salt's been kind of unfairly victimized. As a nurse, any of our patients, everybody was put on these really strict low salt diets, and then half of them were coming back with all these complications from not having any salt because you actually really need it. 4 tablespoons of honey. So your cocoa powder is the prebiotic, right? And the yogurt is the probiotic. You need both to feed your gut bacteria. And our 4 tablespoons of honey. Okay. And then 1/2 cup of bone broth. And if you're really trying to do low, like high calorie, low volume, I would just add in a little bit of my liquids at a time, blend, see if it works. Is there a question?
Can you repeat the probiotic, prebiotic, what you said?
Yes. So your gut bacteria needs probiotics and prebiotics. And my understanding of it is basic, but my understanding is that the prebiotics help feed the the gut bacteria and the probiotics. I don't know, but you do need both to help keep that healthy balance in your gut bacteria. So the cocoa is one of them that's listed as a prebiotic. Cocoa, bananas. I just Googled a bunch of them and there's like a list of different prebiotics. And then probiotics are super high in yogurt, kefirs, things like that. All right. So we're gonna blend this, and if I need a little bit more liquid, if it's just not blending, then I'll just add a little more. If I wanna change it in, I can just delete out that milk and change it in the app also to see my new calorie ratio if I am keeping strict track. Unmuted? Okay. All right, so I never blend for the full, what is it, 4 minutes, they say? I'm just too impatient, I'm sorry. But I do just kind of watch until I don't see chunks, especially if I'm doing spinach or kale or something. Banana, seems like you can kind of see the chunks there. So I just usually, and then since I strain everything, I'll catch it. It's no big deal. If I'm straining and I'm getting a whole bunch, then I'm just gonna blend a little bit longer because it's probably just because I blended like 1 minute. There was a big chunk. Speaking of chunk.
Mm.
But it's okay because it's not gonna hurt anything because it's just caught. And I mean, the nutrition from that one little chunk really is so minimal. I'm not even gonna care about that. All right. So if I'm doing a batch blend, just I feel like it's a little bit quicker. It saves time. I'll strain into my big pitcher and then pour from there. I do think it's a little easier to pour from my smaller measuring cup is why I usually use it. So just a few little chunks in here. I don't know if you can see. Nothing major, but definitely worth straining for. And that was just such an easy, quick step. Now I know it's absolutely not going to clog my tube. There's nothing worse than the tube clogging. It's really annoying. Although it's always clogged in we do pump feeding most of the time, and it's always caught like in that little channel, right? Or a couple times we've clogged the extension, but I don't think we've ever really clogged the button. That never got down that far. Okay, so I need to do, and so I usually do like fluid ounces and just measure out with my scale. I think it's quicker, especially when I'm doing multiple batch blends. It doesn't matter how you do it. You could choose to just go to the cup line on your jar or fill right with syringes. That's totally fine. My only recommendation is just like the NICU rules. I don't know if your baby was in NICU, but um, do the same thing every time was always our advice to all the parents. So whatever you choose to do, whether you're measuring with the Dr. Brown bottle or whether you're measuring with this or your scale, just do it the same every time. So that way you have consistency. And if you're falling off on weight gain or having issues, you know that you've just been doing that the same every time. So then your interventions can be more effective. So we're going to pour out our 6 ounces. I always like to, you can label it however you want, or you don't even have to label it, but I do recommend it because especially if you start to get behind in your blends. And again, you want to be careful of food poisoning. I want to know that what I'm giving is safe. So I'm going to put today's date. we have kind of a strict rotation schedule in the fridge. She's got like her own shelf. We pull blends out of the freezer the night before, stick them on her shelf, and then they thaw in there overnight to be fed the next day. You can figure out whatever method works for you. You could also just date and time all your stickers. But the blue painter's tape wipes off with the slightest bit of water. There's no scrubbing adhesive and labels off. I've got today's date so I can look up easily in my favorites and see what was in that blend without having to list out every ingredient on here. So these are going to be they're all the ingredients were fresh and cooked, right? So it's totally safe to just feed right now. It's room temperature. Or I can warm it up a little bit if I want to feed it a little bit warmer. It can go right in the fridge and be fed within the next 48 hours. Or if it's going to be longer than 48 hours, then I'll just stick the portion right in the freezer, just like this. That's why we like the glass jars, because I can just feed, heat, freeze, refrigerate all in the same container instead of moving it multiple. Like if you use plastic, then you need to put it in something glass to heat it in, or, you know, I feel like that's more complicated and more dishes. Any questions? Did I go over everything? I didn't talk a whole lot about different types of feeding. Is there anything that anyone's feeling kind of stuck on or questions about?
Feel free to unmute and just ask.
I got a question then.
Yeah.
So we're so used to using formulas and some real food blends and some other stuff. We've always just packed up the bag with whatever it would hold, and then it had ice packs, of course, and then
Okay.
we would just save it to the next one. It's really difficult for me to think of doing it one by one, and she definitely needs like a longer time. A bolus, we would have to stand there for half an hour. So we definitely have to use the bags. But how do you transfer like just pouring like one serving, one meal in, um, where it's not like where she's going to get all of it, but there's always that residual extra. I don't know how to transfer to like doing one feeding at a time where I pour it in.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And there is no wrong way to do this. We do bolus feeding with the pump, which is kind of, I think, what you're describing, where it's like we pour this one feeding into the pump, we let it go, and then you're right, there is always that residual, but we measured it and it's 10 mLs. So for us, we always have that little cushion. There's always a little bit of waste. I don't sweat it. You could pour a little water in there and feed that after just to rinse it out totally, but I just don't feel like that's even something I can deal with. So there is a little bit of loss. So you could make your blend just slightly bigger, make it like 6.2. If you're trying to get 6 ounces, that'd be fine too, just to have that little bit of extra to waste. Or what you can do is figure out what you need for the day, right? And just make your blend, like if you want to base it on rough calories, which I think is a good way to do it. If you know your formula was 1 calorie per ounce or 1.1 calorie per ounce, then you can just make your blend that and feed the same amount of ounces. So just keep the bag full, and you don't even have to sweat it. Just know that in the whole day, when I fed 24 ounces of this blend, here's the nutrition that I got. And you can see that right in the journal there and play with that a little bit. Which formula I could show you right on the app right now if you want. Was it Real Food Blends that you're using most recently?
Most recently, yeah, we're
Yeah.
in a figure it out state. But yeah,
Yeah.
real food blends right at the moment. And then I try to add some more greens occasionally, but
Yeah. I think you're gonna love this. I hope it helps. So we have all of the whole food formulas in here. So that way, if certain days you just want to do, use them. Which flavor do you like or have right now?
uh,
They send you random.
I don't want to take over the thing, but we do like I make a right now we're making Ziploc bags and it has five and it's not of like the formula bags is 5 bags of formula with 3 kinds. So you could just
Oh, okay.
randomly pick 3 kinds. It doesn't matter. It
Okay.
is getting mixed. I just don't feel like it
Yeah.
has very much greenery in it. Um,
So you
so
can
it doesn't, it's
throw them
random.
in there and then you can kind of if you decided to add some of your, vegetables or whatever it is that you were adding, you can add that as well. And then it's gonna just break it all down for you. Oh, realist on there. So I'm just kind of guessing, but we can, let's see. Let's add some green leafy lettuce, for example, and maybe some milk or water, whatever it is that you're adding. And then it's going to show you all the nutrition. When I click view recipe card, it brings me over here and it's showing me I could click on each pouch and see what I was getting from that or all of it combined. That whole combo made this many ounces. If you could see what it's feeding every hour based on what your pump is set at. If it's set at like 1 ounce an hour or 2 ounces an hour, whatever it is, you could kind of estimate there, or you could add the whole thing to your 63.9 was
So like we feed her 390 mils of the mix
okay.
5 times a day. So that would, if
Oh
I put
yeah.
390, that would tell me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Okay.
What's 390 divided by 30?
30 ounces.
Yeah, what is that math real quick? You've got a calculator. My husband's an accountant, so I'm always asking him my math questions.
Perfect.
I've got MLs on here backwards. I should have them up here too. That would be easy. Yeah,
13.2.
13.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're kind of doing it feeding based right now with that. So each feeding is 385 calories. But see your calories per mil and your calories per ounce. Well, this is my weird blend with this stuff.
Yeah, I know. I
But
get
yeah,
it.
but depending on what you were doing, you could kind of look at that calories per mil and calories per ounce. And then that way, if you're using other recipes, you kind of know your rough guideline. And it's food. You don't have to have it like exactly 1 calorie per ounce. It's gonna be fine. If she's losing a little weight, then you make it 1.1 calorie. You make it just, add a little bit of oil or add a little bit of something, and you'll be able to see that just by playing with this. Olive oil is a super easy way to add calories that most people tolerate really well. One thing we've kind of looked at too is like our fat percentage. I know that mine, for example, can tolerate 40 to 50% fat and be just fine. She feels fine. Her bowels work good. Some people have to be a little bit tighter on that if it's gastroparesis or, different issues, maybe slow digestion. Maybe they have to know to watch that fat and keep it a little bit lower. And so then you could add calories in other ways, maybe blackstrap molasses or honey or carbs more than all of that is kind of individual and you can play with it, but at least with the tool, you can kind of see where you're at and play with it and make a plan. So then I could take and add each feeding to the journal, and then you could log any additional water and kind of see how you're doing on your whole day added together. That kind of thing.
Nice. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Yeah, there's no wrong way to do it, for sure. You can feed by individual feeding or by a whole day. Did anybody else have any questions right now? Or I think we can be done, but I'm happy to kind of stick around. Oh, there was a couple on the email, wasn't there?
Yeah, there's a few.
Let me make sure I answer those as best as I can, and then
One of them is how to make the feeds palatable while keeping nutrition good.
yeah, good question. So I would look in the blend book at the tasty blend section. This was hard for me because ours did not eat by mouth. So I talked to a lot of friends and got some recipes. And then figured out kind of trial and error of what can work and what tastes good. But a lot of things that do work really well is like a beef stew or a soup or things that are made to be cooked together can be blended together and taste really good. Here's like a pediatric nutrition shake. There's blueberry, chocolate, or vanilla. These are nice and they're super sweet. You can kind of play with the ingredients and that's super high calorie. You can add protein powders, multivitamins. A lot of these are, you can get away with adding a lot to these shakes.
Nice. And then let's see here, we have, transitioning a baby from formula to home blends for calories and balanced nutrients.
So if they're on formula and you're just looking to transition, I would maybe start by just plugging in the formula that they're taking so you kind of see your goals. And then gradually, as you add foods, you're going to do less and less formula. So we have our formulas in here. I don't know which one they're trying to get off of, but let's say they were on 8 ounces of Kate Farms. When I go to my recipe card, I can see all the nutrition for Kate Farms. I can see that it's 1 calorie per ounce. So if I'm looking to gain weight, I'm going to go more than that. If I'm looking to stay even, I'm going to keep it around that same number. So in 8 ounces, I'm getting 237 calories of the formula. So if I keep it around that same or more, then I'm going to either gain or maintain. So if I'm adding an avocado, for example, here's a half of an avocado. And then if I feed 8 ounces, now I've got, you can just literally blend with the formula if you want. Blend your Kate Farms and your avocado together. When you feed your 8 ounces, you're getting 265 calories, a little bit higher calories because avocados are so good and rich. It'd be a little different if I did it with spinach. See how you can just play with stuff. If I do maybe half a cup of spinach. All your volumes are pre-built in here, so you can see and keep your calories the same or increase or decrease, however you choose. Any other questions?
Let's see here. Do nutrients matter? Do you need a variety in daily blends?
Yeah, they do matter. And good question. This is very hard. Sometimes with our formula, we tend to feed the same thing over the years, and it is important to feed the rainbow. I do think that it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect every day. I would look at a few days in a given time and just see, like, am I mostly meeting my nutrients? Us, for example, when we first put out the app a year ago, I plugged in all of her foods that I thought we were doing so great. I thought we were just right on the spot. And as I plugged them in and looked, I was like, we are chronically low on iron, calcium, a lot of our nutrients. So I added a multivitamin because I just couldn't quite make it up with food. And now I know that she's hitting her targets almost all the time for important things. I do tend to have certain ones I watch. She tends to get migraines, so I watch her magnesium really close. I watch her sodium really close just because of her other health conditions. And based on whatever things you have going on, you may have certain things that you want to watch closer. Overall, I would just look at kind of, am I mostly meeting my targets based, and make sure it's compared to the right age profile. You can change that right in the profile section. We have all of them loaded in here. So if it's for a baby or for an adult, to make sure you're kind of mostly hitting your marks. So yes, nutrients are important, but no, don't kill yourself every single day. They don't have to be absolutely perfect. I mean, I can't even think of, if I put in my own foods as an oral eater, I'm sure that I'm not hitting every mark every day, but I take a multivitamin and I call it good. And that's really, I don't think we should hold ourselves to higher standards than that. I tend to make the same kind of blends over and over. I have my like 5 or 6 favorite recipes. And then depending on what we made and I have food saved in the freezer, I just rotate out an ingredient or two. So I don't reinvent the wheel. I might just swap grapes for strawberries, or today I'm adding blueberries, or tomorrow it's a banana. I don't sweat it too much. I just kind of rotate in so that I'm feeding a variety over time. I think that's healthy for all of us.
Do you have any information on blending with breast milk as well?
Yes. Lots of people blend with breast milk. Breast milk's the best stuff on earth as a former NICU nurse and a mom. I just think it's like so healthy for you, but you don't want to heat it a lot and you don't want to break it down a lot. So what I would recommend is blend your blend with, water or milk if they're old enough to have milk, and then make it thicker and then just add your blood, either like you could put your breast milk in and then blend like a little slower and kind of incorporate, or feed your breast milk separately. I would not put my breast milk in a super high powered blender because it could just hurt those cells. And those are so precious and you worked so hard to get them. But they can actually absolutely be a great addition to tube feeding.
If there's anything else at this time?
Okay. Oh, and I do have breast milk in the app as well. So if you're looking at nutrition, and looking at your blends and putting them in your whole day, that kind of thing, it's under liquids, or you can just search by, here it is. So like 2 ounces, and it'll show you your nutrition for that, plus whatever you add with it. Did we get it? Okay.
At this moment, yes.
Great.
If there's any other questions?
Thank you guys so much. This was fun. And I'm going to send you the video, and then I'm going to always be available by email or anything else if you think of any other questions, if you something comes up later. I know how that goes. So thank you so much.